Carlos Alcaraz, whenever he meets Sinner, chances are he wins that game, and that was the case when they met as well.
I told you.
Then I said, because it's a bit rusty. It's Wimbledon, because the clay is Alcaraz's surface. Wimbledon will be back to his best. The question is, Shay, does Sinner at some point in his career, because he's world number one, right? Or he was, maybe he dropped in the rank. Still is, né?
Comfortably so still.
Still, even with the time missed. Okay, world number one, but with not too many wins under the belt when it comes to facing his main rival, Carlos Alcaraz, right? Because they grabbed two Grand Slams apiece last season, but the main foe, as we know, mano a mano, it's Sinner versus Alcaraz. Do you think at some point, because he's world number one, he's got the accolades, Sinner has to then beat Alcaraz and then establish himself as the better player? Because at this point in time, it's still not clear. Must he do that? Is that a must in his career?
You've heard me quote this before, and I'm going to quote you this again. The nature boy, Ric Flair. Woo! What does he have to say? He says, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Mm-hmm. I don't care that Sinner has that world number one title next to him. And that's not to poo-poo that achievement, right? Because he was consistent. He showed up. He was consistent in the tournaments he entered. He won those tournaments and he won his 2 Grand Slams. But he ain't quite the man in my eyes. Because, and I saw in that Italian Open final, yes, they were trading blows in the first set that went to a tie break. And the match wasn't all that much exciting because it was 4 or 5 shot rallies. Mm-hmm. And I suppose when I see 2 greats on the court, especially on the clay, I expect to be sitting down for hours on end. I want to see Djokovic and Nadal and what they used to showcase, even though some people found that to be boring. It's exciting in its own way, but yeah, those 2 boys, Sinner and Alcaraz, they're very quick to pull the trigger. But Chuck, yes, he's been out for 3 months, and he had scheduled himself to play Hamburg the following week as a contingency if he didn't go deep in the Italian Open, but he pulled out of that because he did go deep in the Italian Open. So you have to consider the fact that there is rustiness after 3 months off the court. And Alcaraz did point that out at the end of the match, and he congratulated him on keeping himself in the kind of shape to be able to make the final. But even if he was there like these last 3 months, I think the result would have been the same, because I saw the same result all through last year. You know, he goes 73-6, I believe, or 78-6. His record was last year, which is scintillating, right? And he wins the 2 slams, and then he went on to defend his Australian this year. But when he did meet Alcaraz, every single time, all 3 times, half of those 6 losses came against Alcaraz. And once again, and I told you when we were talking about the Australian Open, this is that I told you that I was speaking about that. He has Djokovic to thank, because in Djokovic's last great performance as Novak Djokovic, because I don't think we're going to see Djoko win another slam, he knocked out Alcaraz in the Australian Open in the quarterfinals. So Sinner didn't have the opportunity to play Alcaraz, right? And here, as in the previous tournaments, when there's no place to hide, when somebody else is not doing your dirty business for you and you have to meet Alcaraz, what happens? Alcaraz invariably comes out on top. And for me, that is something Sinner has to solve. Mind you, Sinner didn't play afraid. He doesn't play afraid against Alcaraz. I just think that Alcaraz is the better player. But that is still a question, right? And Sinner is right there, 3 slams to the 4 of Alcaraz. But Alcaraz, Chuck, when he does get to the final, and that's the thing, that he has to work himself to the point where he's in that position. Between Grand Slams and Masters 1000s, he's made 12 finals. He's 11-1 in those big finals. That's unheard of. That is absolutely unheard of. And so, as a result, because of all those things, that for me is still the man, Carlos Alcaraz. And French Open is coming up. You said maybe you might have better luck at Wimbledon. Do you know who the best cross-court player is in the world right now? It is the same guy, Carlos Alcaraz. So, unless something happens along the way, as I'm saying, you're going to have to go and solve that problem yourself. And for me, to absolutely cement the credential that not only are you world number one, but the best in the world, and in the ongoing battle for the best of the generation, you got to do it against Alcaraz.
I mean, I guess the conversation is, can the 2 greats coexist? And you're firmly on the answer of no. You have to be the better one. You can't say, yeah, but I'm also good as well, unless you topple the man at the top, right? And, I mean, Messi never answered the question, can he do it on a rainy night in Stoke? He never did, right? But he was winning La Ligas.
By the way, I actually have refutable proof. I have refutable proof that Ronaldo actually also never did it on a cold night in Stoke.
You were looking at stats, né? Or did you watch the games?
Chuck,
It's more than stats.
Because there was no recollection of what did he actually do on a cold night in Stoke. And I'm gonna pull that up. This is on video. I'm gonna pull that up. We're gonna make a video where I put that across in terms of the night Ronaldo went to Stoke and it was cold. What happened? Go ahead.
But I was gonna say, then he went on to win the World Cup, and I was like, he's the best. Never did it in a cold night in Stoke. And my point is this, Jay, that does he have to slay this dragon for as long as he's getting? Imagine he gets to 20 Grand Slams. That's amazing. That's a great challenge. Imagine he beats the next best stars of that generation. Your Zverevs, he deals away with that. Your Medvedevs, he beats those guys. That should be a great career. Imagine they all retire and he's got more Grand Slams than Alcaraz. Shouldn't that suggest he had a better career? Maybe not. It would, right?
It would suggest that. I just wouldn't believe the suggestion.
But I think, Jay, ultimately I do agree with you that you must get that monkey off your back. It can't be every time this man shows up, you leave. That's what Cat Williams says. That, have you seen me and Kevin Hart in the same room? Every time I'm there, he leaves. Every time I know he's there, I'm not there. It can't be that. You have to be in the same room and say, I'm here, what now? Because it's a mano-a-mano sport.
Yes.
You can't be the coach because he's sitting up in the stands. It can't be your team.
Teammates.
It's
the organization.
It's just you. And sometimes you have to figure it out. You have to put the fear in him. You have to put the doubt in him. You have to say, okay, when it comes to, yes, I know you're defending Roland Garros champion, but you're playing against me now. It must sound like that. It must feel like that. You're playing against me, world number one. You're playing against me, defending Australian Open winner. You're playing against me, the next best guy, and I'm going to prove that I'm number one. Okay, you might be the best at Wimbledon, but you're playing against me. But every time he has to say that, never goes his way. And so, yeah, I think his voice will get smaller and smaller because however bad Alcaraz is playing, because he was then said to be criticized to be, you're always doing these shoots, you're always playing these games in Saudi Arabia, you're not winning tournaments. But put Sinner in front of him. He does business. It can't be that way, Jay. It can't be great, but this is your great Achilles heel, especially after meeting him so often. I wonder if it was a matter of Gucci, every time he plays Angazi in a tournament that happens once every 4 years, he loses that. That's great, but every year, every couple of months is a Grand Slam. There's that guy in your way. What do? He has to answer that question at least 4 times, unless someone does him a favor. He has to answer that question 4 times in a year. Never mind the other ATP 500 tournaments and the thousands and whatnot. 4 times a year at least in the Grand Slams, you have to answer that question. So you can't keep saying, no, I'm not ready.
Chuck, the narrative is the narrative, right?
Yeah.
It's not like there was once a time where Roger Federer had a losing record against David Nalbandian. But it's David Nalbandian, right? It's not Rafa Nadal. Similarly, you have Ostapenko now, who has the absolute wood over Swiatek, right?
Yeah.
But the question is not going to be who's the greater player, right? It's just that particular matchup. But when it's your peer in the conversation of who is better, like who is greater, whether all time or like in the generation, it was important for Sampras, even though he had like 14 slams to Agassi's 8. He had a winning record against Agassi, you know, and it's why ultimately Federer comes in third of like the 3 GOATs. That yes, there's also the fact that he has lesser of the slams between him, Nadal and Djokovic, but he's got losing records against those 2, you know. You wanna take it to other sports. What you're saying is like very important, like the mano a mano. We shouldn't have wondered like at the end of their careers, is it Pacquiao or is it Mayweather? And even though it came at a time where we all agree that it was maybe a bit too late, but Mayweather has that over Pacquiao. You know, Usain Bolt, he went up against those other guys. Yeah, you might have Safa Powell having the most times sub 10. But it doesn't matter because, like, in the grandest of stage, mano a mano with the other guy right there across you, he beat you. You know, so there's no question. So there will be questions if you don't solve it. Like, and you might not even need to have like an absolute winning record against him, but you have to be close. You can't be that. Again, you're losing only 6 matches in a year, and half of those are to one guy. And the one time you face him in the Grand Slam, he beats you, and he goes on to win that Grand Slam title. And when you've won Grand Slam titles, you've never faced him before. And as a result, you've never beaten him before. So you have to answer the call.